finally, a story of note for those of you who've been watching our trip through Scandinavia this week. A 14-month-old baby girl will be returned to her Danish mother today. The child had been put in foster care during a visit to New York City, all because her mother did something that was quite common in her homeland, but not in America. It is a practice that Charlie and Joan pointed out when they were in Copenhagen on Monday. Here's ABC's Kevin Newman.
In Denmark, it's a matter of trust. Strollers and carriages with life's most precious prize are often left outside while parents shop or eat a meal. But when Annette Sorensen from Denmark did the same thing while visiting this New York restaurant with her child's father, someone called the police.
There were a few customers getting upset about it, about the baby being outside.
And the next thing they know, the police took the baby, and they're being charged with endangering the welfare of a child.
The mother was jailed for 2 days, released after an arraignment, and yesterday went before a family court judge to try to get her baby back. The court agreed, but ordered the mother and child remain in the country while the parents' suitability is investigated. The DA's office also noted that the father was from Brooklyn. One of Denmark's diplomats in New York says this may simply be a case of clashing cultures.
For us, it doesn't seem to be a problem if people do that in Denmark. Nobody is walking around snatching babies.
But this Danish journalist working in the U.S. says it should be obvious that New York isn't Copenhagen.
This is common in Denmark, but of course when you travel abroad, you have to pay attention to the culture where you're going.
A lesson one family's learning the hard way. Kevin Newman, ABC News, New York.
Charlie, I remember watching that story when you did that in Copenhagen on Monday with great interest. This has become big news here in New York. I want to show you the front page of the New York Post here. Back with Mom is the headline that as the child will be returned to the mother today. We've got baby left outside going back with Mom. It's even, Charlie, on the front page of the Washington Post. So people here viewing this with great interest.
Well, I'm glad if we're covering stories over here in Scandinavia that the American press is catching up. Actually, it is big news here in the Swedish papers as well. This is Expressen, the morning paper. It is inside there. I can't read the Swedish, needless to say, but the Scandinavians disgusted with what happened in New York because, as you mentioned, it is common practice what happened in Denmark.
This is CNN.
And child reunion, but someone will be watching over this Danish mom's shoulder. It's a case drawing strong reactions on both sides of the Atlantic. We'll talk live with the father's attorney. From the CNN Center in Atlanta, this is Early Edition. Many in the country found this case shocking, but in Denmark, it is a common practice, and the story goes like this. A woman arrested after she left her baby outside a New York restaurant has been reunited now with her daughter. CNN's Norma Quarles has the very latest.
Danish actress Annette Sorensen was full of kisses as she was finally reunited with her 14-month-old daughter, Liv, but she still has to answer to a judge. Sorensen, visiting from Denmark, described the incident as a nightmare. On Saturday, she and the child's father went to a New York restaurant, leaving the baby in her stroller outside, but in their view.
Their waiter continually asked him to bring the baby inside, said that we have an area to put the carriage in. And
she declined, saying the baby was fine. A customer saw the baby unattended and called the police. When the police arrived, they attempted to take the baby. The mother began screaming. The child's father, who is African-American, attempted to intervene.
The police did their own investigation at the scene that led to a disorderly conduct arrest on the part of the father and the appropriate charge, leaving a child unattended on the sidewalk for an hour.
The couple spent 2 nights in jail, charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Their daughter spent 4 days in foster care. The mother appealed to the Danish consulate for help. Danes in Copenhagen were shocked to hear about the arrest. They say leaving children unattended but in view while they dine is commonplace in their country, but not in New York.
Is that something you would ever think to do?
No, no. There's too many people out there that might try to take the child.
Look at what happened here. This is definitely not a case where New Yorkers turned away and didn't do anything. They saw a child unattended.
Although mother and child have been reunited, they are supervised. She's not to be left alone with the child until the court rules next week on the criminal charges. Norma Quarles, CNN, New York.
And joining us now is attorney David Kirsch, and he represents the baby's father. He's in our New York bureau. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
And good morning, Kitty.
One of my first questions to you is, what time of day did this occur?
This occurred in the evening, approximately 8 o'clock in the evening.
Now, New Yorkers are commonly outspoken, and I understand that several of the restaurant patrons went up to them, and that the father had been living in New York for about 11 years. Why did they not respond?
Well, they did respond. The waiters, my understanding, came up to them and mentioned about the baby was outside, and they knew perfectly well the baby was outside, and they were in parental discretion, full view of the baby, and there was no problem.
So they thought it was not a problem.
That's exactly
But
right.
this is a city in which you commonly chain up a bicycle. Do you think that this, perhaps in retrospect, was a bad decision on their part?
Well, I don't know. We have Annette, who came from Denmark, who's used to doing this. We also have my client, Xavier, who has lived in that area for 11 years and knows that area very well and loves that area. He thought it was perfectly safe. That this is in the evening. People are going to, there's a theater a block away. There's restaurants around. There's a lot of people around. This is a safe area where this occurred.
All right. Mayor Rudy Giuliani has defended the arresting officers, saying it is absolutely better to err on the side of caution. Wouldn't you agree that in respect to a child's safety, that's true?
Well, it's true to the extent that the police were concerned. But my question is, why couldn't the police go on inside and say, listen, we think there's a danger here, perhaps you can take the baby inside, and then they would have done that. They didn't have to take them away in handcuffs.
What exactly occurred? I understand there was a charge of disorderly conduct made against your client?
Yes, he obviously, when he went outside, they're taking his baby away, so he got a little angry. And they charged him with disorderly conduct. I think anybody would get a little angry when you're taking a 14-month-old baby away from your site.
Mm-hmm. Were any blows exchanged?
Not to my information.
Some reports say that he intends to press charges of brutality. Is that accurate?
Well, he's considering that at this point. Right now, he's very concerned with the criminal charges against him and wants to totally focus on that.
Mm-hmm. But what basis would he have those charges of brutality?
Well, he says that when he was taken to the precinct, there was one police officer that, when they put him into the cell, he said that he had to go to the bathroom. So they took him to took him to the bathroom upstairs and hit his head against the wall, tried to put his head in the toilet, and kicked him in the shins.
Aren't there usually toilets in the cells? Was he in a large cell with many people?
He said he was in a cell with one other person, and there was no toilet in that cell, and he asked to go to the bathroom. And when they didn't respond, he had to go, and he tried to go. I guess they got upset over that.
All right, let's move on to Monday's proceedings. What do you expect to happen?
Well, Monday has been canceled. The criminal part now is June 4th. That's the next date.
All right, so what happens next? What do both parties intend to do?
Well, on June 4th, that's when the trial date is set. Now, we don't know if the people are going to be ready on that day, or perhaps maybe they'll think this over a little carefully and say, hey, let the mother go home with the baby. Let's drop the charges. This is, it's gone too far.
All right. Thank you very much for explaining it to us this morning. David Kirsch, attorney for the infant's father.
Thank you, Kitty.
From NBC News, this is Today with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer. Live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
A 14-month-old girl is expected to be reunited with her parents, who've been in a New York City jail since the weekend. They are charged with endangering the welfare of their daughter in a case that is highly unusual. NBC's Rahema Ellis sorts it out.
This is where cultures collided. Annette Sorensen left her baby asleep in a stroller outside this New York City restaurant, while she and Xavier Wardlaw, the baby's father, were at a table inside.
Several waiters and waitresses went over to the table and told them, bring your baby inside. And they were pretty nonchalant about it. They said, well, our baby's from Denmark. She's used to the cold.
A customer called 911 to complain. The police came and placed 14-month-old Liv Sorensen into foster care and put the parents in jail for 2 nights. It quickly became an international incident. You see, the mother is from Denmark, where such practices are common. But in this case of cultural differences, what's okay in Copenhagen isn't necessarily safe in New York. Lawyer David Kirsch represents the parents.
Now you tell me, if you're close to your child, how can that be endangering the child? If you're right near the child?
The parents even sought help from the Danish consulate. A judge ruled Sorensen will get her baby back later today. She just wants to return to Denmark with her baby and put this incident behind her. Next week, a New York City court will decide whether that's possible. Rahima Ellis, NBC News, New York.
When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When in New York City, the same holds true. One visiting Danish woman has found that out. ABC's Kevin Newman reports it was a lesson learned the hard way.
Here's where it happened, and here's what authorities say happened. Annette Sorensen was visiting from Denmark. The father of her 14-month-old child lives in Brooklyn. The couple was sipping margaritas in this Manhattan restaurant, while their baby, who lives with mom, was in a stroller just outside the restaurant. Well, someone called the police, and their lawyer describes what happened next.
And next thing they know, the police took the baby, and they're being charged with endangering the welfare of a child.
And she was very startled, very upset, couldn't believe, baffled that she was being arrested for this.
Ms. Sorensen spent 2 days in jail and was arraigned and released, claiming that she'd done something that's quite normal in Denmark, a country where children in strollers are often left outside while parents shop or eat in the stores. Denmark is a country where people still trust one another, even with their most precious possessions. Jim Christensen is a Danish diplomat in New York.
For us, it does seem to be a problem if people do that in Denmark. Nobody is walking around snatching babies.
But New York is not Copenhagen, as the Manhattan district attorney noted. The father is from Brooklyn. This is a large city where terrible things happen to children who are left alone. Family court in New York ruled the baby could be returned to the mother, but neither can leave the U.S. until child welfare agencies investigate the criminal charges. So whether this was simply a clash in cultures will now be fought in court. Kevin Newman, ABC News, New York.
And the baby now has been returned to the mother, who still faces some legal action. But it's one of these sort of interesting stories. Zillions of crimes happen around the country, of course, every day. But this is one that's captured a lot of attention. All the tabloids have different photos of the woman like this. The tabloid photographers camped outside of her.
And they just managed to get her in that,
and just did that.
Middle.
So it's been sort of interesting.
I don't think anyone realized how safe Denmark is. I wasn't aware that they had such low crime that people were just leaving their kids in the street in front of the restaurants.
Sometimes they just leave them at the grocery store and, I'll be back this afternoon. No, but I mean, it apparently it is a custom. A custom thing. I hope my parents would never do that, but who knows. Anyway.
You were switched with some kid outside the Piggly Wiggly back in New Orleans.
Exactly.